Okay, get ready for a story that sounds completely made up, but I promise you it's very, very real. We're going to talk about how a simple, everyday problem on a state of the art warship is somehow at the center of a massive international crisis. I know, it sounds like the start of a bad joke, right? Can broken toilets stop a war? But believe it or not, that seemingly absurd question is at the very core of a high stakes standoff happening right now in the Middle East. So, to really understand how we got here, we have to start with this number $13 billion. And yes, that's billion with a B. What does that kind of money get you? Well, it gets you one single ship, the USS Gerald R. Ford. This isn't just any boat. It's the U.S. Navy's newest, most advanced aircraft carrier. It's basically a floating city, designed for one job and one job only, projecting American power all across the globe. Now let's look at a totally different number, 650. No, we're not talking about missiles or fighter jets. This is the number of toilets on that very ship that are causing a massive, massive problem. Just let that sink in. The most expensive warship ever built is facing a critical failure of its most basic systems, clogged and broken toilets. It's a situation so bizarre, some in the media have actually started calling it the toilet war. So you're probably asking, how on earth does a plumbing issue on one ship blow up into a geopolitical nightmare? Well, let's get into this wild story of high-tech ambition meeting a very, very low-tech failure. Just try to imagine this for a second. You have 5,000 sailors on board, operating one of the most complex machines ever created by humans, and their mission is being seriously undermined because they don't have enough working toilets. This is so much more than an inconvenience. It's a huge blow to morale, to sanitation, and to their actual readiness to fight. But here's the thing. This whole plumbing fiasco isn't happening in a vacuum. The USS Ford is sitting right at the heart of the largest U.S. military buildup in the region since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. The stakes could not be higher. Just look at this military footprint. Iran is effectively surrounded. There are destroyers in the Strait of Hormuz, combat ships near Bahrain, aircraft carriers positioned out of Diego Garcia. The U.S. has created what looks like a ring of steel, setting the stage for a potential major conflict. And the official line from the White House on this? It's pretty direct. When a spokesperson was asked if Iran was a threat, they just pointed to the Death to America chants coming out of Iran's parliament and essentially said, "You tell us." You combine that kind of rhetoric with all this military hardware, and it's clear tensions are at a breaking point. Now, it's so important to remember that all these incredible machines are operated by people. And for the 5,000 sailors aboard the USS Gerald R. Ford, this deployment has pushed them to their absolute limits, both physically and mentally. Their mission has been a total grind. It started way back in June of last year. Then they were diverted to Venezuela. And after that, with no break at all, they were sent straight to the Arabian Sea for the standoff. That is over 8 straight months on continuous active duty. And on this deployment, one of the longest in recent naval history, by the way, they're living in what's known as ghost mode. That means zero communication with family. They can't tell anyone where they are. We're talking about sailors missing the funerals of their own parents, all while dealing with the daily frustration of living on a $13 billion warship with broken toilets. So you've got this mix of overwhelming military power and incredible human strain, and it all puts President Trump in a really tough position. There's immense pressure on him to act, but his history with Iran is pretty much defined by indecision. The sheer absurdity of this situation hasn't been lost on the international media. This headline from India, for example, is just dripping with dark humor. Troops feel the pressure as Trump vows to flush out Khomeini regime. That pun is definitely intentional, but the reality on the ground is anything but funny, and the tone shifts dramatically when you see pleas like this one. This was reportedly the final message from an Iranian man who took his own life, begging President Trump not to back down this time. For many people, this is truly a matter of life and death. And that kind of urgency comes from a pattern. In the past, President Trump has encouraged protesters with promises of help, only to pull back from any direct action at the last minute. This has left them to face the Iranian government's crackdowns all on their own. By the president's own admission, over 3,000 people were killed in that last crackdown. So you can imagine how this history has created a really deep sense of uncertainty and mistrust among anyone in Iran who might be hoping for American intervention. So, what we have here is basically a perfect storm. You've got an exhausted Navy crew, a critical equipment failure on their ship, an indecisive president who's under a ton of pressure, new protests kicking off inside Iran, and you have other world powers like China getting involved by supplying weapons. All these different threads are converging at this exact moment. And it all leads us to this one critical question. The USS Gerald R. Ford is supposed to be this ultimate symbol of American power. But what happens when that symbol, both the machine itself and the crew running it, is starting to crack under the pressure?